It is 9:01. We're here for a regularly scheduled Fort Myers Beach Town Council meeting at Diamond Head. All council members are present. Both managers are present. Town attorney, town clerk. If you would please join me after, if you should choose to want to do it. But after the invocation, we have an Army vet in the audience. Mr. Koss, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance after we're done with the invocation? Thank you, sir. Please rise.
Let us embrace each new day in every transition and change. As we enter into each new era with excitement and even some anxiety, let us recall compassion, presence, and abounding love. Let us be thankful for the experiences that have brought us to this day and for the work of others that gives breadth and depth to our own work. Amen.
Morning, Council. Ed Ryan for the record. This past Saturday in Times Square, we held a little 5K with 400 of our closest friends, and I just wanted to come up here and let everybody know you can't pull off a major event like this without help, and I wanted to publicly thank just a few of those folks. We had about 35 volunteers helping us set up at 5:30 in the morning. Eva Turtle Time was out on the sand at 5:30 in the morning, clearing us to set up. The fire department waived their fee to have an ambulance on hand, and we had a completely volunteer medical tent. There were no injuries. Pastor Sean at Forest delivered a big pallet of water. Publix donated water and flowers for all the moms. Graham at the Goods donated ice. Tom at La Ola donated or loaned us his generator to power the DJ. We had a volunteer violinist out on the course playing music for the runners and walkers. Private parking lots opened up at 6:30. A few of the restaurants offered specials to the runners to encourage them to stay on the beach. And I can't thank the Fort Myers Beach Public Works Department enough. I only wish I had their names from Saturday. We had one person there at 5:30 in the morning helping with cones, and then we had the buggy out there helping set up the course, or it would have taken us a lot longer to do that. In the end, we were able to donate $11,000 to FMB Strong and do it right there in Times Square when we handed out the medals. And finally, Keith, we know you're getting ready to head on down the road. And Kim and I wanted to give you something to remember the beach by. That wasn't a bottle of rum.
Thanks, Ed. And I would not necessarily say that there was no injuries. My ego took a pretty good beating thanks to the vice mayor here. Who else we got, Madam Clerk?
That's all I have signed up.
Is there anyone else that chooses to speak? Hearing none, we'll close public comment. Oh, I'm sorry, John, I didn't see you. Come on up. You want to speak? Public comment?
At the item.
Yeah. Okay. Now we'll close public comment. Next, under local achievement and recognition, we're going to start with Principal Tracy Kohler from FMBE. Come on up, Tracy.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you. As she mentioned, I'm Dr. Tracy Kohler. I'm the principal at Fort Myers Beach Elementary, and I'm here to give you an update about our wonderful school. Probably the best thing that happened post-Ian for us as a community of learners was for us to stay together, albeit off-site at a different location, which was challenging for our parents. We were able to really lean hard on each other and support each other. So for that, I'm really grateful to the district and to the town and to everyone else who made that possible. So I wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you for that. I also wanted to give you an update on our progress monitoring or our statewide assessments. They're taking place this week, and they also took place last week, a few of those assessments, and our students are doing so well. We should be super proud of them. They're outperforming any other school, I would dare say, in the district, or very close to the top. We have close to 85% proficiency across all grade levels, which is astounding, especially in grades 3 through 5, where we have new benchmarks provided by the state this year. K1 and 2 had the same benchmarks last year. So we're really just so proud of the staff and the support that we provide to students to make sure that their academic learning environment was seamless and stayed at that high level of rigor. So I wanted to acknowledge our teachers and staff and our students for all their great work. In addition, our community has really come forth, and I wanted to say thank you to everybody here. Although I am not a resident of Fort Myers Beach, I have to tell you that since I was able to become principal at the elementary school, the support and the outpouring of love for the school has been just humbling, quite honestly. From the foundations that have provided checks for anywhere between $500 to $5,000 to support initiatives at the school. It's super generous. In fact, just this past year, a gentleman who I had not met before, maybe some of you know him, his name is Joseph Bishop. He passed away in January of 2023. And much to our surprise, we received a letter in the mail from an attorney stating that we were one of the beneficiaries in his trust. We didn't really know what that meant, but a few weeks later, we received a check from his estate for $50,000. So that's just really another piece of evidence that shows how much our community and our families support the school. So for that, I want to also say thank you. And we look forward to continuing those partnerships with everyone so that we can increase the enrollment and meet some of those agreements that we have in the ILA that you'll be discussing today. I also enjoyed working on the ad hoc committee with many of you as part of that so that we can reach the ILA final agreement that you will be voting on later on. We really are excited to be back on the school campus in the fall. The historical building will be the focus area upon which the remediation and remodeling will take place. And there is enough room in the historical building for our students and staff to be back together. And again, continuing that community of learners back on our campus is really critical for us to continue to heal. And we also have a musical tomorrow, 5:30 in Times Square. So I'd like to invite each one of you. It's a public performance. Bring your own chair. Probably bring some kind of umbrella or cooling towel because it'll be at 5:30. And we know there's not much shade down in Times Square. So please know that we welcome all of you so that you can see all of our students performing at some portion of the spring musical. And with that, I look forward to next year, hopefully being back. I look forward to partnering with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. We'll start down there with you, John.
Three things. And I'll piggyback on what the doctor just spoke on recently, but I wanted to offer a happy belated birthday to Counselor Karen Woodson and Vice Mayor Jim Matterhole. Take some time and thank this. I mean, the students just amazed me. They were so poised. I know I couldn't have done what they did at that age, standing before school board and talking about what was going on for them. The parents, the most passionate people, and staff. And I thought I had a caring elementary school. Community was important in this as well. The community at large. Keith Wilkins, and Woodson, who were Mayor Allers. I know you and Vice Mayor the South Florida Conservancy of Southwest Florida. I want to thank the president and CEO. He could here on the beach. So I'm looking at probably trying to get tickets. Maybe we'll work out something with Jeff for a summer school program, or get tickets to that amazing facility. It's just south of the Naples Zoo. But Chris and I got an opportunity to walk through the Discovery Center. And it's a very hands-on thing. So I'll work with him on that and see where we can get some tickets. But that takes care of it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Adderholt.
Just going to piggyback on what Councilor King was talking about. He did a nice job of giving an overview of the effort to save the beach school. And I would just be a little bit more granular with respect to, obviously, we heard from Dr. Kohler, who was extremely helpful, along with one of the teachers who served on the ad hoc committee, Alicia Catlett. Dr. Kohler, of course, has unique qualifications to be part of this effort, and that she's a University of Wisconsin graduate. So I thought that should be noted for the record. Obviously, Jackie Lisek was great. And then, but there were 4 parents the parents overall were spectacular, but there were 4 parents on the ad hoc committee in particular. And I've been in politics for a long time, and these 4 people, I stand in awe of them. John Koss, Jenny Tardif, Patrick Van Ness, and Monica Schmucker. Highly intelligent, passionate, and I would say in very strong terms, incredibly strategic. Anybody who thought that 7-0 vote by the Lee County School District, which we're very thankful for, happened by itself or just happened, I don't think they've been watching the whole story. These 4, along with the parents overall and the kids overall, they led this effort, and they managed the effort at a time when their personal lives were in complete disarray, as everyone's was on the island. I don't think the school district fully understood, and in fairness to them, there's no way they can. I don't think they understood what everyone on this island was going through. You really can't unless you live here. But these 4 parents, I'm just proud of them and thankful for them. And we would not have a school if it was not for their efforts, along with the broader team of parents. I would briefly like to again thank Beach Talk Radio for the the day before Mother's Day run. I would just say, with respect to events like this, particularly as we move out of season, so important that we begin to think about, and there are people a lot more clever than I am on how to do this, but having events during the off season. I think personally, this summer and this fall is going to be the toughest on this island. As we go into move into the rebuilding phase, I'm extremely optimistic about the future, but the summer and the fall is going to be particularly tough on our local businesses. And so any type of festivals or events where we could draw people to the island would certainly be appreciated. That's why the Beach Talk run was so important. But also, I think and the mayor talks about this a lot, and I think we ought to work with our PIO and with Jackie from the chamber, but we really need to be talking about really making a concerted effort to buy local, support our local restaurants, bars, and stores and shops that are open and that are opening, because it's going to be tough this summer and fall. I think we're going to, as I always talk about, we're going to have a functional paradise again next season, but this summer and fall is going to be very, very hard. So when you think about leaving the island for meals or shopping, boy, take a second look and see if there's a way on the island you can stick around and help our local businesses during this difficult time. Lastly, to Keith and his compadre, Chris, I refuse to say goodbye to you, but I will say thank you, and I will say Godspeed to both of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Woodson.
Well, I think there's a lot of piggybacking going on, but I just want to say thank you so much to the parents, and especially our kids of the beach school. I mean, the announcements of their scholastic achievements in this kind of tough year, I think it's just incredible. And it's so important. The parents that have been involved in this and have been supporting their kids, the teachers have been amazing. I just can't thank everyone enough. And I'm just really, really proud of everything that you've done. I totally agree with Vice Mayor Adderholt about events and getting people to the beach. And I know there was a lot of negativity about having the 4th of July parade. We didn't know that we were going to have the cleanup from Lee County at that time. And so maybe that is something that we can refresh or at least have some kind of festival for 4th of July. I know there won't be fireworks, but we need to move forward. We need to keep this town active. We need to keep it moving for all of our businesses and our residents. Keith, this is a sad day for me anyway. I just want to thank you. Thank you to you and Chris. You are going to be sorely missed. I think we have a great new town manager in Andy, but I too refuse to say goodbye. Who knows? We might take a field trip. You just never know.
There's an annual reunion as well.
Oh, and an annual reunion. I didn't even know about that one. Okay. You're going to be here for the almost Mother's Day run again next year, right? Yeah, there you go. All right. So thank you.
Should have read the contract a little closer. Counselor Veach?
I guess it's tough at the end. There's a whole lot of piggybacking going on. I just want to say I really was proud of our community with the parents and the kids, that it showed the strength and compassion that we have here as our community, and the work of the ad hoc committee. I also want to thank Keith, and I'm looking forward to see how Andy does without the training wheels. So, but thanks Keith. You came in at a difficult time and helped us through the transition, just like you intended.
All right. Well, just a couple things. One, I think, again, we use the piggyback word, but to say that I'm proud of what our community came forth and did with the school, this elected body, as well as the school board elected body, it really shows when people put their heads together and they're willing to work together, you can really come to a positive outcome for everybody. In any negotiation, if it's a good negotiation, a friend of mine always says this to me, if it's a good negotiation, nobody gets everything that they want. And I think that's the case of what we had here with the school board. It's going to get our kids back. We'll continue the fight. It's not over yet, but we'll keep going. Also want to thank Beach Talk Radio for their organization of the run this weekend. It was impressive to see the amount of people that were there. I wish some of the winners would have stuck around a little longer, especially the ones from the beach that took first place. But it was a good event. I almost beat my time. Next year, I'm coming for you, Vice Mayor Adderholt, so be ready. Also want to thank the TDC at our meeting last Wednesday. Everything that we had asked for was approved. There was no cuts in anything, so keep an eye out. I believe Jenny's going to get out some sort of news release of what all those things were. We're going to prepare to get our asks in again for the next session. As we all know, numbers are drastically down across the board, but there's still money there to be had. They're actually going to pull some money from reserves to make sure everybody gets what they want. Thanks, Jeff, for being there the day that I couldn't be there and covering for Fort Myers Beach. And lastly, I want to thank Keith and Chris one last time for everything that you've done. You guys have come in at a very difficult time and help right the ship. So I think we're on the right way. The sail's up. Now it's in Andy's hands, and we'll go where we're at. We look forward to you guys coming back for a visit, or maybe we'll take a field trip up there. You never know, but thank you again. All right, moving on. Advisory committees, items, reports, and appointments. We got Steve Johnson from Murph here. Steve, come on up.
Morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, Town Council, Madam Clerk, Mr. Hyatt, Mr. Wilkins. Thank you, by the way, for all you've done for the town. Today's Marine and Environmental Resource Task Force project review is specifically about new agenda items. We met last week, and the first items on the guidance report here are ongoing. I brought those up to you last month, just regarding remedial projects that we're waiting for activity on. But as you can see on the status side, as you go down the first page there, you'll see under status new. So the first one is rebuild right. And the idea here is these are agenda items we're potentially going to pursue. All the advisory board made recommendations, brought up topics. And so we're looking for guidance from the town and potentially prioritization. So the moniker we've used is Rebuild Right, but the first was beach accesses. So in this case, is there a need to research the data on resilient beach design? We had terrible scouring, and they also had come up with the request to have the initial focus on safety. There's still some flat work, I think, that needs repair, but the trash cans, I believe, are starting to show up, which is absolutely fantastic, and then pet waste. So, but of course, that's limited by the timelines and funding. Next up was Rebuild Right Bayside Park. I know there's beginning to be plans for that, so that's an item that the Garden Club even showed up to offer up their resources for potentially the tree selections. Going to the next page, and if there's anything, please stop me if you need any more information. But again, Rebuild Right mangrove protections. I think this was offered up due to the situation that happened at the Beach Theater, and really, what does the town have as a response to just buying credits at the Pine Island mangrove depository to continue to do what they'd like to do. Also, Rebuild Right was just town vegetation with regards to just revegetating the town properties from A to Z, but also hopefully to codify that landscape and vegetation management ordinance, which would prevent invasives from being planted. Continuing down, again on Rebuild Right, we've had a topic came up regarding the density and intensity as we move forward and its effect really on the environment on a barrier island. So building elevations, temperature increases, wind patterns, all those types of good things, hurricane evacuation requirements. Continuing on, Rebuild Right, beach obstructions. In this case, with the berm sand being placed, renourishment on the agenda for later this fall. And these managed beach zones, which I think you're familiar with. If you get sand, you're required to put a dune in. And the idea between the dunes and let's say maybe even water sports is that during the season you can store your obstructions behind dunes. And I think that's been, hasn't been a main focus of compliance for the town, or at least it's been sort of grandfathered over the years. But since we're rebuilding right, that's something we can look into. The EC zone protections. Beach raking and grooming compliance, and additional items as directed by town council. So if there's anything else you would like Murph to be researching or investigating for you. Is there anything here that needs to be stricken? Is there anything here that needs to be added?
Any questions? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, and maybe proceed out of order just a bit, I'd like to ask my colleagues if we could formally add an item to your agenda, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly, it's very appropriate given the audience that we have today. And I think this is already happening informally, but I'd like to sort of formalize it in that one of the numerous programs and solutions that we have to help grow the enrollment for the beach school is to create a magnet school. Some call it a water school. Some say microbiology. Some people say quality water, and there's a lot of different facets to this magnet school. But your committee is uniquely situated to help with the programming and design and sort of partnering. You guys have relationships throughout the environmental community, and the parents are already heavily involved. I know Dr. Kohler's involved. Maybe to just put that on your agenda is to see how you all could partner with the school to formulate ideas and partnerships to really help that magnet school concept grow and prosper. Would that be something that makes sense to you from your perspective?
Sounds like absolutely. We've got some people that have done that in the past, and
Excellent.
some people in town I know that have volunteered at schools over the years with curriculum and content. So
if
Would
I
love
could
to
ask
do
my
that.
colleagues for unanimous consent to do that, and Amy, if you could then add that to their formal agenda, that would be great. Or I don't know if Steve, I don't know who formally adds it. I don't know if that's Counselor Veach or somebody makes notes of these things, but
I think the chair working with the staff liaison can get it on the agenda.
great.
No, I think it's a great idea. Got my support.
Excellent.
Any other questions for Steve?
You looking for just a general go ahead with these projects?
Yeah, basically go ahead. And again, any more additional, even a prioritization, if there's anything that's hot and burning in your minds right now that of the items we talked about, we can move those up because we would probably, not try to begin one or two of these every meeting. So obviously it would take some time to get through the entire list.
I know that there was discussion about our tree giveaway. It usually happens in Arbor Day.
Mhm.
That if we get funding to expand that, so we can come up with native plants, so we could give to people to put in their yard
Mhm.
as an incentive to go native.
Mhm. Yep. We'll talk to some nurseries. Sure. I'll be delighted to bring that up.
And Councilor Veach, I like that idea. Can our friends at Tidal Basin, and there's got to be recovery funds that must help. I think we maybe touched on that last time on the vegetation front, that maybe they could help, or maybe even
It's certainly worth a conversation.
Yeah.
And guys, I know one trick with applying for grants is you want to make sure that the value of the grant is more than the cost of going through the application process.
I think we did touch on this, Keith, didn't we, last time? But certainly food for thought.
Yes, you did. And Tidal Basin is watching for opportunities for funding for those programs.
For me, Steve, one of the important things here that sticks out at the beginning is the beach accesses.
Mhm.
As we rebuild these, if you guys could work with staff, we've pushed for a long time through TDC to Times Square as a beach access. I know with a little help from Murph and its members who surely come out in droves when it's time to come out. I think if we could get your assistance to help us in that cause along with staff, I think now is the time to do it, to make that push with TDC to get that, as well as some of the improvements to some of these beach accesses that we have to rebuild back as we move forward. That's that's our number one asset that we have. So keeping them open and nice and accessible is very important to me.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, just for the public's benefit, would you just elaborate a little bit more on that? Are you talking about having Times Square designated a beach access, or finding a beach access within there? Or because I know we've had a hard time getting funding for Times Square from TDC. What are you thinking about?
Exactly what you said, the Times Square as a beach access. I can't think of a more heavily traveled entrance to the beach than Times Square itself. Whether it's Lynn Hall Park or directly down, people walk through there constantly. You see more people in and out of there daily than you do at any other beach access.
Sure
So
do, yeah.
Crescent Park.
Crescent Park as well. Yeah. So I think it's important to try to, the answer may still be no, but if you keep asking, eventually it's going to be yes, hopefully. So now, if any, is a time as we have to rebuild all of Times Square as well as the pier and the park on either side, I think now is a good time to make a push for that.
Okay. Excellent.
And I think one reason why they don't consider it beach access is because the town doesn't actually control any land that's on the beach, right? I mean, everything is county. And I do believe, though, there's one little sliver of land that's actually got a strap number, which is between the pier and the buildings and on the other side of the park, that there's a way we can negotiate acquiring that from the county, who now has it, that would give us a connection from the beach to Times Square. And maybe that's a possible in the negotiations that we're doing with the county with various things, like a master plan, that if we can get that solid connection from town-owned property from the beach to Times Square, maybe that'll get us over there.
Well, one of the things we do is research, so we'll find out what we can and get back to y'all.
I think another piece on this list that think is very important as well is the Bayside Park.
Mhm.
I mean, that is kind of the culmination of Old San Carlos. We've got a lot of activity going on there.
Mhm.
And I know there's been work being done. I just don't know exactly where we're at with updates on Bayside Park. But I mean, that could be such a focus point, and
Mhm.
it can happen much sooner than later, and certainly much sooner than Times Square.
Right.
So that should be a major focus for us as well.
Mr.
Yeah.
Town Managers, if it's not already on your list, can you give an update to us under your items at the end of where Bayside Park is as far as sending it out for design and that kind of thing?
We have Jason in the audience too.
Or Jason? Doesn't. Yeah, sorry, not to exclude you there, Jason.
And I don't think probably the tomato plants in Bayside Park are considered native.
tempted to eat them, but geez, all these wild tomatoes laying around.
They're
I'll
good,
tell you, the
though.
ones from my
They are
backyard
really
taste pretty
good.
good.
Are they?
Yeah,
I was a little hesitant.
I was a little
to-
hesitant, but I'm still here. so.
Thinking they were full of hurricane juice.
Hey, they're well, they have nitrogen and all kinds of things
That's
going.
right.
Well fertilized.
Well fortified, right?
Steve, you didn't have to go there. I was going with it was the, the mulching box that we had in the backyard. That's why, or what are they called?
Compost.
Compost boxes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. There's nothing
Anything else for Steve? All right.
Let's
Thanks,
get back. Thank you.
Anyone else, Madam Clerk? No other? All right, move on to the approval of minutes for the town council meeting on May 1st, 2023, and the management and planning session for May 4th, 2023.
So moved.
Got a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second? Any discussion?
I just noticed it on page 15 of the packet under title base and presentation. They misspelled Eliza's name. It's AlYza instead of Elisa, I think.
Okay. Any other discussion? We got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have the consent agenda where there's resolution 23-51, utility vehicle replacement, Bay Oaks Youth Programming to accept an $8,000 donation. RFP 23-13-CR for partial re-roof of the Mound House and RFP 17-29-AD for the emergency debris removal contract extension for 60 days with Crowder Golf. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Got a motion? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second? All those
Mayor,
in-
if I could
Yes,
just,
sir.
one thing, sorry to interrupt, but the debris removal was extended to 120 days because of the
120
RFP process.
days.
Mr. Town Manager, could you explain what that means? Is this for the side streets or what are we talking about?
I'll let Jason address
Jason, yeah,
to be an accurate answer.
that's fine.
Good morning, Town Council. Jason Freeman, Public Works Director. So this would extend just to have a debris contractor on contract with us, just get through hurricane season. The goal is we're working on a RFP to get a new contractor ongoing for the next couple years. But just to give us enough time to do that correctly and get that bid out in solicitation, we're just requesting that Crowder continue on just so we can keep up with the current debris removal. And then if anything comes up in the meantime.
So this is a prospective contract, correct?
It is. And then continuing with any right of way or any debris needs that we need
Very
currently
good.
as well.
Thank you.
All right. We've got a motion and a second. With that little bit of change, is there any other discussion on any of the consent items?
I'd like a little more information regarding the utility vehicle replacement.
I'll let Jason and Steve address.
Good morning again, Jason Freeman, Public Works Director. So we have one of our Ford Transit vans that the utility technicians use to go out and about and do their daily operations. It's currently broken down, so we're looking at replacement options or repairs. I also want to take the minute. We have Steve Mateska, who is our utilities manager. He can be able to provide a little bit more information on that as well. So I wanted to formally introduce you all to him if you have not already.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if I may. Procedurally,
Yeah.
we need to pull these items off a consent item, off the consent agenda if there's going to be discussion. Otherwise, under your rules that you have adopted for yourself, the items get adopted in bulk unless they are removed from the consent agenda.
Okay.
So as I understand it, based upon conversations that have taken place so far, the consent agenda items A and D have been removed from the consent agenda and will have to be voted on separately.
Okay,
And typically that should be done in the approval of the final agenda, right?
correct.
To pull those.
In a perfect world, yes, but we're flexible.
Okay, so before we go on, we'll pull consent agenda A and D. And before you go any further on this one, let's go back to D.
Sure.
So we can vote on the change that the town manager had brought up. Is that fair to do it that way?
Yes.
John? Okay,
That's right.
so let's go back to D, RFP-17-29-AD, emergency debris removal. It is changed from a 60-day extension to 120 days extension. Is there a motion to approve consent item D.
Move approval.
Got a motion? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that carries unanimously. Now we'll go back to resolution 23-51, utility vehicle replacement. Continue on, Jason.
Sure. I'll let Steve come up and speak.
Good morning, council, vice mayor, mayor, Steve Matuska. I'm the utilities manager here for the town now. This utilities vehicle is a much needed purpose. We are down temporarily 3 vehicles. I've also added an additional position between stormwater and utilities. And we're trying to bring some work in-house so we can get the process of the cleanup moving faster. This truck will allow us to tow our excavator that is currently not being used. We're working on getting that restored since the storm. And it will give us access to tools on site versus the guys having to run between the north tower and the south tower to get parts. We're replacing a currently existing vehicle. We're trading it in on this, and we're piggybacking off a Collier County contract as well. Can answer any further questions you have in regards to the vehicle.
So a trade-in, we are getting something. For the
Yes,
vehicle.
we're very minimal, but we are getting something for the transit van. It doesn't run. We are trading it towards this. It's also a 2022. It's the only 2022 we found. So it's about $15,000 cheaper than the newer 2024s that we are finding that are comparable.
Yeah, I did, a perfunctory internet search, and it seemed like it's a good deal. Is there a reason why we're buying versus fixing, or?
The repairs on the other vehicle were up in the $7,000 to $8,000 range. It's a utilities van that is pretty beat up. It has a lot of miles on it. It's also just a lot of idle time, constantly running around. So the miles aren't really a true reflection of the wear and tear on the vehicle.
And they are no longer making the transit.
Yeah,
van.
they're no longer making the transit vans. I've quoted quite a few other vans, and I'm getting about $45,000 for a basic small Nissan van that doesn't have the same capabilities of something like this.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Any other questions for staff?
Mr. Mayor, move approval.
Got a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that carries unanimously. We already have a motion on the table to approve remaining consent agenda items B and C. Is there any other discussion on those? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the rest of the consent agenda passes unanimously. Next, we have public hearings. The first one is ordinance 23-05, temporary housing. Final reading and public hearing for proposed ordinance 23-05 entitled An Ordinance of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, authorizing the placement of temporary housing and temporary governmental use facilities in specified zoning districts of the town, providing for conflicts of law, Scrivener's errors, severability, sunsetting of this ordinance, and providing for an effective date. Who's starting us out? Mr. Town Manager?
That'll be me. Thank you, Mayor. Wrong one. It's the ordinance for the temporary housing is our trailers. Basically is where we're set up, and we need to just get this approved so we can move forward and continue to be in that spot or find another location should the need arise.
All right. Any questions for staff or John? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, there has been some discussion at the staff level, primarily the Community Development Department, with regard to the issue of that, the intent of this ordinance. And as the manager indicated, a significant portion of this is the ability for us to have our temporary facilities for the sheriff's office to have their temporary facilities, but also for the rebuild of individual homes. We have had, or staff has informed me that we have had at least one inquiry already to put a mobile home or RV for short-term rental. And I believe that has always been the intent of this council that not be allowed. And there's been that discussion before. So the suggestion is, if it's agreeable to the council, that on the second page of the ordinance, which is page 323 of 396, in paragraph 2,
You said 320?
323. You there?
Mhm.
At the end of paragraph 2, the following sentence be added, so there's no doubt whatsoever about the council's intent. A TTP shall not be used for the purpose of placing and operating a short-term rental.
John, with that, I got a question about, paying attention to the Senate Bill 250 that has some wording in there specifically revolving around this. There's talk of it going, if it's signed, going to 36 months. Would this then have to come back before us to change that to fall in line with state statute?
I think that from a practical standpoint, we would continue to follow this ordinance with the extended time period as essentially preempted by the state. So, which is consistent. I don't believe it needs to come back, because if you look at throughout the document, on the following page, 324, it talks about increments in 6 months, not to exceed 18 months. There's a catch-all that allows for it to be extended for more time if the property owner is working in good faith towards completing the home in question. And obviously for us, that we're in the process of rebuilding town hall.
And I'd have to go back and reread it, but I don't remember reading in there anything restricting short-term rentals in that legislation. Would that then defer to ours because it is more strict than what the state legislature?
Yes, sir. I believe that the statute that's in Tallahassee is about temporary housing for rebuilds after the storm, not for commercial purposes.
Okay.
So I know one of the things that has come to my attention is that for use of the short-term rental, it is because loss of income. And I don't know if that plays any part in this, but people are concerned about that. And that is why I think this has come to us at this point, because short-term rental maybe was, or, obviously part of their whole income, and that's a loss of income. So I don't know if that plays anywhere here.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because it made me think about some other things that are in the legislative session that are coming out, is making it easier or allowing businesses to litigate against municipalities. And I don't know the exact wording in it, but it was something about allowing businesses to litigate against municipalities should they make a change or do something that would affect their business. If they have their short-term rental listed as a business, is that something that we would have to worry about?
I don't believe so, because we're not changing our short-term rental regulation.
But by putting this in this temporary ordinance, are we then restricting their ability to operate their business?
No, I don't believe so. Your code and the short-term rental regulations talk about single-family home. Doesn't identify RVs. Doesn't identify trailers as eligible structures for licensing as short-term rentals. Whether or not we get sued, it's hard to look into the crystal ball. I don't believe such a lawsuit would necessarily be successful, given the circumstances, and more importantly, given the purpose of this particular ordinance. The purpose of this ordinance is to provide relief to individual homeowners whose homes have been damaged or destroyed, and to allow them to put a temporary trailer, RV, as the case may be, while they rebuild. Otherwise, it's prohibited altogether. So what you're doing is you're providing for an accommodation and to assist people in their recovery efforts, and geared towards the rebuild of homes. If you all want to allow it to allow people to use those RVs for some other purpose, now's the time.
I remember talking with the state emergency crew when they were here early, and they said their experience is even long-term renters, they discourage putting in trailers because they're almost impossible to get out. And you know, that the renter doesn't have control over when that structure is going to be put back up.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to do this, but I asked the clerk before the meeting started. We thought that the public hearings A and B would go relatively quickly, and we've got a lot of folks sitting out there who have full-time jobs. I wonder if we could, this is an important conversation, but I wonder if we could just table this for a moment and move to the administrative agenda so these folks can get back to work. But I don't want to step out of a line here, but I see all these, I don't think there's anybody providing public testimony on public hearings A or B. There may be, but I don't think so.
Well, I'm not opposed to that. Let's finish this one out. I think we're pretty close to the end of.
Well, I looked like we were setting up for a long debate on this, but maybe I'm wrong.
No,
Okay.
I don't have anything else, but I'm not opposed to that as long as my fellow members aren't. And John, can we do that procedurally? After we finish this, we can, okay. Are there any other comments on this?
Yeah.
If not, we'll open it up for public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on ordinance 23-05 temporary housing? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Any further discussion?
I'm sorry. It looked like we're getting into a heated debate here, but I'm glad I'm wrong. Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve ordinance 23-05
Now, was this as amended?
as amended? Well, whoever makes the motion can decide to say that. Are you going to make the motion?
Yeah, I will make a motion to approve 2305 as amended by our town attorney.
We got a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of ordinance 23-05, signify. Oh, roll call, sorry. Counselor King,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderhall,
Aye.
Mayor Allers, aye. Counselor Woodson,
Aye.
Counselor Veach,
Aye.
motion carries unanimously. Now we will move administrative agenda item A up for discussion. It's resolution 23-45, interlocal agreement regarding Fort Myers Beach Elementary. A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving an interlocal agreement between the School Board of Lee County and the Town of Fort Myers Beach regarding the rebuild, expansion, and operation of Fort Myers Beach Elementary School, authorizing the execution of the agreement by the mayor and authorizing all appropriate town officials to take all necessary steps to implement the interlocal agreement and providing for an effective date. John, do you want to just make some comments on this in case people aren't aware of what we're talking about?
I just want to say and echo the comments that have already been made by all of you to recognize and acknowledge the hard work and effort put into getting to this point by the parents and the ad hoc committee and everyone who supported this. We went through a very long and difficult at times communications with the Lee County School Board, and their general counsel's office is very cordial, but it was long. and ultimately came to the document that you have before you, which provides for the rebuild of Beach Elementary, phased improvements to Beach Elementary, and ultimately an expansion of Beach Elementary if certain targets as far as increased enrollment are achieved, which is ultimately the goal of the community and presumptively the Lee County School Board. I'm sure they spoke on the issue when at their meeting. And so it's before you for approval.
Are there any questions for John or any other staff member? Hearing none. Public comment? John, come on up.
Hi, my name is John Koss. To reiterate what's already been said, you guys have all been amazing. Our parents have been amazing, and I'm happy to get us where we're at. I did want to, there's a little confusion going out about what we have in front of us just when people approach me, because a lot of people ask me, we have to build our enrollment, absolutely, but the enrollment's not the driving thing in this ILA. It's cost per student. So, before the storm, there was numbers out there, I think $20-some thousand cost per student for our kids as opposed to Sanibel. Well, the school district, along with Dr. Kohler, have been working real hard to find efficiencies within their operating budget, and we're already finding they are already finding some savings to that. So I just wanted to put that out there. Some people have it in their mind, like we have to have 150 kids by this date. That's not what this agreement says. The agreement says that 4 years from now, that our cost per student needs to be in line with Sanibel or Pine Island. And like I said, there's different ways to get that, to get that in line. That being said, this is the beginning, not the end. It's been a stressful, long process for a lot involved in this. We're gonna have to stay engaged as a town, and we're gonna have to look to ways, quite frankly, just to start raising money. Hopefully we get this taken care of to where we don't have to contribute anything to the county or to the school district that we already give $24 million a year to. That being said, it would be unwise of us not to start going down the path to where we line fundraisers up with some of our amazing members of the community. It could probably help us get the word out there, and talking with Jackie, maybe setting up some legacy donors and getting like a trust for the school, going. So I just wanted to mention that to all you guys. The Water School idea is something I talked to Jim and mentioned to Jim. There's some obstacles in that. We'll have to get approval from the district, but that's in the ILA. They will work with us on doing a magnet school. And I just think because of our geographic location, I sat looking at the ocean the other day and imagine 10 years from now seeing an oyster bed or a reef out there that maybe our kids help build, and I think that if we did some unique things with our school, we could draw some kids in from our local communities. The parents see it, they would get them here. The last thing I want to mention, it's kind of off topic, but on topic, is I don't know the correct procedure or person to talk to about this, but we have a unique tradition with our fifth graders. They put their handprints and names in the sidewalks that's dated back. If you go to our sidewalks, you'll find some pieces from the 1970s. Our kids graduate in 4 weeks. Some of our parents were, I'll finish up once. Some of our parents were trying to do this on concrete that we could later transport to the school. I'd like to throw out there, I don't know who gives the approval or who works, but I'd like to have a little celebration of getting our school back and let our kids actually do it in the sidewalks permanently where they would be, and would appreciate anybody's help in here who can make that happen.
All right. Thanks, John. Speak with the town manager after the meeting on that. I think that's a great idea, and he can facilitate that for you.
And if I could, Mr. Mayor, for our town manager who's new, our public works director is a graduate of the beach school, so he'd be a very good liaison to help with that cement project.
Is your handprint out there, Jason?
I love it.
Do you know where it's at? No? Perfect.
If only he were a Badger.
Yeah, you'd have it all
Thank you,
covered.
Pat. Yes.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Good morning, Patrick Vanass for the record. First of all, I'd like to thank council for all your help, town attorney, and the staff that has supported us through this process. I think what we have before us today is a good compromise, but keep in mind that it is indeed a compromise. It's not, we're not getting everything we wanted. And I think it's fair from that standpoint that, as we all know, that's what a compromise is. Both parties don't necessarily get exactly what they want, but they get something they can live with. So I think it's something we can live with. Like to also, for everybody to keep in mind that we can't be complacent. We've got 4 years. And at the end of that 4 years, if we don't meet the cost per student criteria, we then had to find other options. And the other option, either it's going to cost the town some money and the residents some money to supplement that deficit, or we have to go to a charter school. Again, I think it's a good compromise. Let's not be complacent. We're going to have to get continued support from council and also from parents and town residents. I think we have a very strong community and a very strong will to make this work. So I am positive. Jenny, who is one of the parents here, spoke at the last board meeting over there. And one of the things that she reminded everybody, though, is if we did not have that historic designation on that school, we may not have a school today. So let's not let our guards down. Let's work really hard in making these things happen, either the magnet school, making sure that we ask the district for a bus hub off island so we can bring the kids onto the island and get our enrollment nice and solid and the school nice and healthy. That being said, we formally asked for your support for that ILA. And we like to thank you for your help. Last but not least, a lot of the kids on the beach this summer did not have summer camps like we traditionally have. We were able to get at least 25 kids that can participate at the summer camp at the Mountain House. So Jeff and your staff, thank you very much for doing that for all the parents and all the kids. They're looking forward to it. I think they're going to have a great summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Monica?
Hello, my name is Monica Schmucker. You may know that. I served on the ad hoc committee, and I'm up here to formally request that you vote and push forward this ILA. But I do want to thank first and foremost Mr. John Herron, who I feel was thrown in almost blind at the beginning, and he worked really, really hard to listen, to engage with us, to understand the parents, understand the concerns, and also, most importantly, involve the parents who are the stakeholders in all of this. Notwithstanding any pushback he may have received, he did a really, really great job of representing our interests, and I want to formally thank him. And I also want to thank Vice Mayor Aderholt, who has been compassionate, has offered so much wisdom, and really listened, and was just such a huge part of our committee and making this possible. So thank you very much to Mr. Aderholt. And of course, I want to express my support for this ILA. I think it represents a lot of really great brains coming together and coming and just putting forth something that, like Mr. Vanass said, we can live with. But I think it's a win, I guess, for us, because we are going to be able to take this and build on it and build the school and eventually get to where we want to be, even though we're not getting 100% back of our school today. We can work that. So it has set forth these benchmarks so that we can get to where we do want to be, provided we continue to do what we have to do as a community to bring in more folks, do the increase enrollment and everything that's been discussed. One thing I want to mention specifically about the ILA, it does require that we put together a committee to monitor and reach the goals. And one of the folks in that committee has to be a town council member. So I wanted to recommend that we keep Vice Mayor Jim Adderholt on that committee. And for the simple reason of he's just been in it since the very beginning, not that any one of you would make a wonderful part of it, but I think that since he's been there from the beginning, just for that continuity, that would be my recommendation. That's what I would ask for. Other than that, I just want to encourage you all to please push this forward and vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Anyone else? I didn't see you. I didn't see you back there.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate
State your name.
all the unity and support.
Gotta say your name.
Oh,
for
I'm
the
sorry.
record.
My name is Jenny Tardif. I'm born and raised here on Fort Myers Beach. My kid goes to Beach Elementary. You might know her. She's Marina. She's a little bit of a celebrity. I just wanted to say that I appreciate all the unity and support through all of this. Within a week of the storm, I had people telling me the beach will never be the same. And as someone that's from here, that was really hard for me. But obviously, nothing's going to be the same after that. But I have to say, when I joined this ad hoc committee and I saw the community and the entire council behind us, it was such a relief for me. And it's true that the island is forever changed, but that's happens regardless. Anytime you overcome anything, you're changed. So it's true that my kids are going to grow up on a much different island than I did, but they will have some of what I had, thankfully. Bay Oaks, and the Mound House, Bowditch, Lover's Key, and with the support of this council, they're going to have beach school. So I'm just very thankful that we have these staples in our community for them. And I think growing up on this island will be just as amazing for this generation of beach kids. So thank you for protecting our kids from further trauma, and thank you for helping us start them on such a strong foundation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no other public comment, we'll close it. And we'll
Mr.
bring it
Mayor,
back.
if I could, before we close, is Principal Kohler still here?
She is.
I'm sorry. I don't want to put you on the spot, Principal, but I think it would be helpful for you to come up. And I assume the budget's public. So if you could share a little bit about some of the economy, so we don't want to get into all that. Okay. All right. I see John's head nodding, yes or no. John is the spiritual leader of this group. And I always do what John tells me to because he's a lot bigger than I am. So if you want to pass on that, that's fine.
I like how you use heavily worded spiritual.
Again, Tracy Kohler, principal of Fort Myers Beach Elementary. We are in talks with the school district regarding some, I guess it's been termed right sizing of the school, but really what I'd like to say is continuing the utmost supports for our students moving forward. We're having discussions with the district around that, what that staffing structure would look like. And by the end of the year, we'll be able to announce some of those adjustments that we've made, but it's all moving in a positive direction to get that cost per pupil.
And that's
Right on the
that's
mark.
that's what I was looking for, Principal. It's just that to demonstrate that the school is making a good faith effort to
Absolutely.
comply with our end of the deal already, which I think
Yes.
is very impressive.
There'll
Yeah.
be some significant savings along that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Any other public comment? Terry, come on up.
Good morning, council members, Mr. Mayor, town managers. Terry Prasad, Sunset Beach Tropical Grill. Just want to point out to you guys that it's been 1 month since the council directed the town attorney, Mr. Herron, to provide a counteroffer to my settlement, which has yet to be received. This afternoon at 2:30, there's going to be a federal mediation process. Mr. Herron was also supposed to provide a confidential.
Terry, hold on just a second. John, should he save this for final public comment or can it be under? Okay, this is for the ILA for the school
Oh,
board.
sorry.
I know you just walked in, so you probably didn't know where we were at in the process. So save your comments for the end. Thanks. Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll close public comment. We'll bring it back to the council for discussion. You know, I'll start us off real quick. I fully support if this motion moves forward. Having the vice mayor lead that charge should he want to on that committee. I also made a note here that I know we've talked about it in the past, but as we move forward, I think it's very, very important that we come up with a corporate partnership strategy to get them information on what activities we have at the school, what after school things we do, so they can really heavily promote in recruiting their people to come in to bring their kids to the school, drop them off, go to work, pick them up at the end of the day. I think that's going to really help drive some of these numbers where we need them to go. So personally, I'd really like to see this committee work heavily on creating a plan and some literature to be able to get to the people that we know that are coming and building and investing in our community to hopefully get us to this goal line before we even come close to the deadline. So those are my 2 cents. Any other discussion?
I just have a question, and I read the ILA and I honestly cannot remember. So I know the historic school gets renovated first. What is the next steps then in the plan for the rest of the school? Is it as the population increases, with the kids, or?
Patrick, hold on. I think the vice mayor can handle this one.
Well, it's a great question because there's a number of variables involved, and a lot of that will depend on the cost per student. A lot of that will certainly built into the ILA is the cafeteria piece of the puzzle. But I think the way the town attorney has, I think, appropriately structured the deal is that as the student population grows, there's certain state requirements that requires Lee County School District to respond accordingly to the space needs of the school. So correct me if I'm wrong, John. I think everything is really contingent upon the state rules as they relate to the growth in enrollment of the beach school. So we have a protection there for the school. Should enrollment grow, I certainly think there's a good faith.
Mr. Vice Mayor and Commissioner Woodson, to a degree, yes. There is a requirement by the school board that it repair, number one, Beach Elementary to accommodate the current enrollment, which was around 50 students plus or minus. There is a requirement that within, at its cost, within another 12 months at a bare minimum, the school board at its cost must put in the facilities, the kitchen facilities, to provide for food service to the children. And then depending upon the level of enrollment, the school board must comply with the state mandates of providing additional facilities within the historic school, which they calculate up to approximately plus or minus 80 students. So they will have to do that. That is their requirement at their cost during the first 3 years. If there are additional enrollments, then under what's called phase 2, they would then have to expand the campus essentially to more in line what it was prior to the storm, with additional buildings and facilities to accommodate that additional student population. The benchmark at that point is as long as the cost per student is consistent or comparable to the comparators, which are Pine Island Elementary and Sanibel Elementary. And that then becomes the benchmark by which the school will continue to be operated with hopefully no additional funding by the town or corporate citizens, or the need to convert it to a charter school. So that those are the things that the school board must do under the ILA.
And do we know yet if it's possible to bring those current buildings back through mitigation and cleanup, or they don't know? Or?
They have told us that they have to, it's best that they're destroyed because they would have to elevate them otherwise. And because they don't have the historic status that the historic building does. And given their current state of affairs, they would rather just start fresh and have those torn down. They've already made that decision.
Yeah. Are there any other questions for staff? Hearing none, Vice Mayor, would you like to make a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I move approval of Resolution 23-45 interlocal agreement regarding Fort Myers Beach Elementary School.
And I will have, go ahead. I was going to do it, but John, you beat me to it. We got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries unanimously. Good job, guys. Now we'll go.
Mr.
ahead.
Mayor, since we're on this and we have all these parents here, have the parents determined the three representatives that they would like to have for the ad hoc committee as it continues? Do you want to take some time to think about that?
Yeah, I think that I guess we should have asked, does anyone have any objection to Vice Mayor Adderholt being the council liaison for this committee?
No objection at all.
None.
All right, then I think you can work on that directly with them.
So you'd like me to work direct? I didn't know if everybody wanted to bless that or not. I'm happy to work with them, and I know Jackie Lisa has expressed interest in continuing to be the business representative, and we need three parents, and then the rest of the other five. It's a 10-member ad hoc committee, and the other five, including the principal, are from Lee County officials as well. So however you want to handle that, Mr. Mayor.
I'm certainly okay with giving you the blessing and moving forward. I wholeheartedly trust your decision, and there's not one person on there that wouldn't be deserving of being on that committee. So I have no objection to you making the decision.
It seems to me like you've built a pretty effective team.
They have built the team, but yes, we have a great team.
John, procedure, is there any problem with that, or because it's a committee, does it have to come back before council, or can?
No, I think that what the ILA requires is one member from the council, which has already taken place, and then I don't know what the exact number is from the.
It's five from Lee County, and it says in the ILA that the town establishes this ad hoc committee. So I assume we can then do that, John.
Correct. Once the group of parents provides the names to the council, we can then create that. I would, historically, the committees that the council has, permanent committees, have been created. There's been an ordinance that creates the committee. So I would anticipate, unless you tell us differently, we would do the same thing for this committee.
That's fine. It'll take a little time to get the names from Lee County as well as to who they want as their representatives. So I'd be happy to bring that at a later date before the council. But by the way, I would be honored to serve. I'd go into war with these people. They're something else.
All right. We will take a quick 10-minute break, and then we'll come back to go to move on with our public hearings. We will come back at 10:25. I would conflicts of law, and an effective date. We will now open the first public hearing and schedule for a second reading and final adoption on June 5th, 2023 at 9 a.m.
residents trying to get back onto the beach. A request of one of the home builders was that we take a look at ways to assist in this. This is a list of the streets that currently lots, and as you can see to the side, that's a plat of one of those existing neighborhoods. So you can see the angles of the lots. So this is a zoomed in view of why this makes it complicated. If you were to build and meet the setbacks, the front and rear setbacks, you would have odd angles at the sides. The request was that we allow for rectangular homes to be built on these non-rectangular lots. Another item that was brought up is regarding the width of these lots. If you look along the front of that, it does say that's a 50-foot, I believe, 50-foot frontage. However, because it's at an angle, that's not the shortest distance between the side lots. So if you measure the shortest distance, you actually lose about 5 feet, a little less than that. In this code, we did not address the width. We only addressed front and rear setbacks for these. The proposed ordinance deletes 2 definitions for lot width, because previously in the existing ordinance, lot width is measured differently depending on when the lot was created, which is kind of a silly way to do it. When it was created doesn't affect the width of the lot. So we shouldn't be measuring that way. We've added a definition for a parallelogram lot. The description is up there. I think that's fairly clear. And then we changed the way that the lot width is measured. Now it's the shortest distance between the side lot lines. We're specifying that. And then if the side lot lines are not parallel, it's the average between the front setback and the rear setback. So it's where the house would actually sit on the lot as opposed to from the front to the back. Because if it's a long lot, you could have a really, really wide back and a really, really narrow front. It makes more sense to base it on what the actual location of the house width will be. In the ordinance, we are going to include a diagram so that it's clear what is being referred to in the definitions and in the explanation. We're also going to explain how the front and rear measurements are measured, or front and rear setbacks are measured. And it's important that the front and rear setback is measured from the midpoint of the lot line to the midpoint at that setback. And then we would allow an encroachment of up to 8 feet in the front and up to 8 feet in the rear, but you would not be able to develop in that compensating area. So if you're building 8 feet in front of the lot line on one side, you have to provide 8 feet on the opposite side.
And Sarah, that measurement would come from the corner of the building? How it would, when?
Yes, yeah, the closest point.
Not through the midpoint of that.
Yep,
but
the
from
midpoint
corner.
is where the midpoint actually has to be at the setback. So the 20 or 25 at the rear and 25 at the front, the house has to meet it there.
Okay.
These proposed modifications, as explained, would allow this encroachment on these oddly shaped lots only. And the modification would not reduce the side setbacks, which was part of the discussion, but I didn't think that it was appropriate to include it in parallelogram lots because we would be giving a special benefit to a lot shape as opposed to an actual width. So if we want to reduce side setbacks, we need to apply it to all lots that are X width, not just parallelogram lots that are X width. Please provide your input, any questions, suggestions on modifications, and set a second hearing date. I'm available for any questions you have.
Are there any questions for Sarah?
The drawings you did, because I assume that these these parallelogram lots have different angles on different
Yes.
streets. So is your example here from an extreme case or from a typical case?
It's from a typical case. They all do angle slightly differently. This is sort of an average.
Yeah, I know that the first house we bought here on the beach was on Coconut, which is a parallelogram, and I had no idea how close we were to the lot lines because they just put the houses wherever back in the day. But there was a neighbor across the street who built a parallelogram house.
And it is possible, and I think that that is something that we would have possibly encouraged in the past. However, at this point, I know that there is a strong interest in allowing people to build non-custom homes so that they can just get back to the beach. In the past, I know that there was a lot of interest in having more unique architectural designs and not allowing that square look as much. But if you look at the typical layout of these neighborhoods, they were rectangular houses. So they were sort of at a sawtooth angle.
Any other questions for Sarah? There might be some later. You never know. Okay, thanks,
you.
Sarah. Next, we'll open it up for public comment. Is there anyone here that chooses to speak for public comment? Yes, sir.
Good morning, Tyler Knaufel with Homebound. Thanks for hearing me out today, council members. One of our initial homeowners that wants to partner with Homebound let us know that they initially felt they had to go with a custom rebuild. So they contracted an architect, created a home plan that would fit the current setback requirements, but that had really complex roof lines, exterior details and waterproofing, and a relatively inefficient floor plan. Not only did the homeowner feel like this was a great compromise, it was also.
Any more public comment on this? Hearing none, we will bring it back to the council for further discussion. Sarah, I know that you said that in this, I watched the LPA hearing on this, and I know that there's I'll wait for you to come up here. Sorry. I keep forgetting you don't have a microphone. I know that there is a, I look at this case kind of similar to like we talked about those small cottages up on the north end, and there was no chance for them to build back what they had before, but through the LPA and the council, changes were made to allow them to build back at least what they had, and they could go bigger if they wanted. They just had to come in and go through the process. And I know that we're not discussing, I'm fully in favor of what you got here. I think it makes sense. We do want to get people back on the island. We do want to get them in their homes as fast as possible. This allows them to do that at a number that not everybody can afford. So I appreciate, the effort that you and the LPA put into this, but I do want to make a couple comments about the side setbacks. I want to be, and this is just my opinion, I want to personally be careful that we don't adjust it, because I believe in the LPA there was a comment made about, making it look like we're giving special treatment to just 150 lots.
Mm-hmm.
And although that can be looked at that way, how far do you want to take that? We're already adjusting this so that something can be built. I'm a little cautious about doing stuff with the side setbacks, because then you open, as you said, you can't do it for just 150 homes. You got to do it across. So just as a discussion piece, as you move forward and you're looking at that, if you can bring forward when you have those discussions, how many lots that would affect if we make the changes that were discussed in the LPA hearing, so that both they can make the decisions that they need to make to recommend to us, and then we can then make the decisions from there. But those are just my 2 cents. Any other questions or comments for?
I would concur. I think that I have no problem with the front and back setbacks because it's kind of like you give a little, get a little, and it's kind of neutral. I'm uncomfortable with reducing the side setbacks because of one builder's minimum size. Because I know that with the modular homes, 30 feet is kind of their standard, and they put a lot in that footprint. Some really decent floor plans. So I don't really think, I'm not really comfortable with reducing the side setbacks for one particular builder and their specifications.
Yeah, and it, kind of goes, you went a little further into it than I was going to go, but what you're saying is, and listening to that LPA and looking at the numbers here, it sounds like their buildings can fit within the current setbacks anyway. Any other comments?
I commend the LPA on this one. I watched the hearing as well, and it seems like a very reasonable and measured approach, and they obviously took it very seriously, put a lot of time into it, and I think it's a very practical solution.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's a solution that doesn't have an adverse effect on the public safety. And I know that was talked about greatly in that. So if there's no other questions for Sarah, didn't mean to bring you up for just some comments. I thought you maybe have another
perfectly
question
fine.
too.
Thank you.
All right, we'll bring it back to council for a roll call vote. Unless there's any other comments.
You need a motion to move to the second?
Motion. Oh, it's a motion, yeah. I forgot it's not the second.
I'll make a motion to move the ordinance 23-08 to a second reading on a date certain. So that's going to be June 5th?
June 5th.
On June 5th, 2023 at 9 a.m.
I'll second.
Go ahead. Got a motion and a second. Now do I have to do the roll call vote? Okay. I thought you were giving me that look, Amy. Sorry about that. Counselor Beach?
Aye.
Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Mayor Allers? Aye. Vice Mayor Adderhall?
Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously to the second reading on June 5th, 2023 at 9 a.m. Next, we have administrative agenda item B, the Beach Profile Monitoring Survey. Authorize the town manager to approve supplement task authorization number 16 contract RFQ-20-06-AD for the 2023 annual Beach Profile Monitoring Survey. Mr. Town Manager or Chad, you want to give us a little?
Yeah, I'll let Chad come up. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just the financial impact to the town would be $7,068 of a total of a $47,000 project. Chad.
Hey, Chad Schutz, environmental staff. So same monitoring that we do every year for the beach from Bowditch all the way down south. It will give us a baseline pre-hurricane season, and this one would also be used in our design plans for the renourishment project.
Any questions for Chad?
Mr. Mayor, only because Chad's already up the microphone. I was going to ask this during the council items, but it'll save time. Chad, could you just give us a brief update on the emergency berm project? And will the emergency berm project also be placed in the CWA as well? And just kind of give us an update on those two things.
Sure. So I'm hearing we're on the order of the 20,000 plus or minus linear shoreline feet, where we should have about 10,000 linear feet surveyed by the end of the week. And we have about 100,000 of the 120,000 tons of sand delivered on the island and being placed.
So you see there's 100,000 tons of the 120 already on the beach?
Either already on the beach or in the staging areas. Yes,
so
sir.
most of the sand is already here then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good to
And
know.
We're able to get about 2,000 to 2,500 tons a day, just because of the demand from us in Collier County getting the sand out. So it's a good thing
Is it phased in and it's being disseminated and distributed in piles and then it'll eventually be manicured? Is that what,
Yes, sir.
has the manicuring actually started yet?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. So that's that 10,000 feet by the end of the week. They should be surveying it to confirm that it's in the engineer spec for the berm.
And the CWA area, particularly the Leonardo Arms area, is that part of the emergency berm? project, or how does
It-
that work?
It is. So it's not in the CWA per se. It's going to be landward of the CWA, but yeah, in front of there, the issues down there are the shorebird nesting. So, we had some that got wiped out, and then within a week they were nesting again. So we're just trying to dance like that, and then plan for some contingencies on whether or not we stockpile the sand to be put out later, or just figure something out so we can get sand down there eventually.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Chad, go ahead.
I was saying a couple things you said. Now, you said the 10,000 of the 20,000 linear feet are done?
We'll be surveyed by the end of the week. Yes, sir.
Will be surveyed?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, because I was going to do in them, because it sounds like you're like 80% of the way through having the sand here.
Right. So yeah, just confirming that it's the right elevation, the right slope, right volume of sand
Okay.
placed.
And just back to the original topic here. The beach profile, are you working at all with the LiDAR studies that FDCU did? Is that a valuable part of that profile, or, because it seems like it's much more detailed?
I've heard some things on LiDAR. I can get some answers from our coastal engineer on the pluses and minuses of that methodology.
And I think some of the work has already been done too.
Yes, sir.
So
Just for the sake of time, Chad, since you're up here and it's kind of revolving around the berm, I figured, I know you and I have had a email conversation about a concerned resident with the beach accesses. If you
Sure.
could just touch briefly while you're up here to save some time and maybe some emails for my colleagues that may or may not have gotten it, as to how the berm is being installed and what is going to happen at the beach accesses.
Sure. So for cost efficiencies, we are building one berm straight across, which will cause some accessibility issues at our accesses. What I'm told is that after we've surveyed and gotten the sign off from the engineer, we can push the berm that's in front of the access up a little bit and create kind of an overlapping dune in front, and then have on-grade access out to the sides.
All right. Thank you.
So Chad, just for further clarification, and I understand what you're saying, but just so everybody can understand who lives in the CWA, the CWA obviously is just the area that abuts the ocean or the Gulf, but the landward side of the CWA, there's room there for that emergency berm. So technically, it's not in the CWA. Is that in essence what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks, Chad.
You're welcome.
Bring it back to council. Is there any further discussion? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Next, we have item C. It's the SB4 grant, approved submission of a grant application to the SB4A waiver program. Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. This is a new program that's just been announced. Be available on July 15th through June of July 15th of 2023 through June of 2027, or until the funds run down. It's offered on a first come, first served basis. It's between $250 and $1 million. It's defined as a recovery and mitigation activity, and we feel like this is something that we would be able to take advantage of, and it would be, the financial impact is an advance payment of whatever the grant would be, with the reimbursable grant, as most of us know most grants are. So we would ask for approval.
Any questions for Town Manager?
I have a question. So this recovery and mitigation activity, do we have any certain projects in mind that this would go towards, or?
I don't think we have at this point. I think we're going to brainstorm after this and then pull some together and see, obviously the park is one of them, the town hall is one of them, but something we can get fairly quickly to get it going and get moving. I don't know that it's a shovel ready requirement, but we've got obviously plenty that could plug in.
I suppose it depends on the size of the grant, if it is granted. Any other questions?
You mentioned, Andy, you mentioned shovel ready. Now, the closest thing we have to shovel ready is Bay Oaks. Is that something we could apply this to?
Quite probably. I don't know if it is going to be, because there's going to be FAQs that come out from the Department of Emergency Management soon. I mean, this is just we actually got a phone call saying, we would encourage you to be on the lookout for this and get started. So we're ahead of the curve actually before we even get a lot of information, but as soon as we get it, we'll pass it along.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve SB 4A grant?
So moved.
Got a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Brings us to final public comment. Is there anyone choose? All right, Terry. Start again.
Oh, We're still in the morning, so. Good morning, council members, town manager, mayor. Terry Prasad, Sunset Bay Tropical Grill. A month ago, I came to you guys, offered you a proposal for resolution to our legal matters. The council members directed Mr. Herron to submit a counter proposal back to our attorneys. It's been 1 month today. We have not yet received anything. That's very concerning, and as we attempt to heal and rebuild our town, these actions are not helping. It's just continuing for the legal actions, and I think the council should be very concerned with not trying to get these items resolved. We have a federal mediation scheduled at 2:30 today with the town, and it's my knowledge that there's no one from the town coming to represent the town besides the same attorney that's not cooperating with resolving this matter. I hope you guys look into that. We still have some time to have someone there at the federal mediation process, but we're not getting any response from the town as far as trying to resolve these matters. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else choose to speak during public comment? Hearing none, we'll close public comment. Town manager's items.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have Jason come in just a minute about the Bayside Park update, but I think one thing that everybody's, paying attention to obviously is hurricane preparedness and what we're trying to do as a town to get information out there. We sent out a press release, I believe on Friday or over the weekend on May 15th. It actually goes out today, so I got it yesterday. But, we're trying to get as much information out there. We've got our placards ordered so we can get those distributed to residents. We're trying to figure out the number now to see exactly how we'll do that. We're going to have a tabletop exercise next week, I believe.
25th.
Mr. Town Manager,
yes.
just for the public that's listening, you say placards, you mean hurricane reentry passes?
That is correct for the reentry.
Thank you.
To the island. Also, updating our emergency management plan just to make sure that we have all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, and we know whose responsibility it is to allow access and that type of thing. Obviously, with all this preparation and things, we're going to keep the hurricanes away, but we've got a lot to do otherwise. But we want to make sure we get all the information out that we can get out to the public, so they're just the who, what, where, when, how. There's no questions. They understand everything. Contact numbers and staffing. We're talking a lot about staff. Since I've been here the last 2 weeks, we've already had one meeting and got another one this week. Following up on hurricane and emergency preparedness in general. One thing I want to do as coming in as a new town manager is to review the purchasing policy. Just make sure we're doing everything that we need to do to expedite purchases within the approved budget. Not necessarily change it. I just want to review it personally, as well as a lot of things. That's one thing that's at the top of my list. A few of the other things we have going on in the finance area, the DEO emergency bridge loan agreement was approved by you May 1st, and we signed and executed that and sent that off May 8th. Now we're waiting disbursement of the funds. The capital improvement revenue note, 8.8 million balance remaining there, and it may be used for FEMA reimbursable projects. So we've got a funding source there for that type of thing. The extended deadline for drawing down the funds has been moved from November 2023 to May 2024. So that's a bit of good news. Interest on outstanding balance will accrue at the rate of 3.15%. So just a little bit of information there. We've also applied for a community disaster loan with, communicating through FEMA of $5 million rather than the $2.5 million loan originally estimated. So we're working with them on that. Also applied, the closing fiscal year for 2021. We are closing that out and getting ready for the audit to move that along to get that before you, hopefully sooner rather than later. But we also going to start moving into our FY24 budget year so we can have that approved in time for our fiscal year. Jason, if you want to come and speak a little bit. Go ahead.
Andy, before he gets
Yes.
there, I just want to make sure that nobody has any questions for you
Okay.
before we bring it. I have a couple. One is on, we'll go backwards. One
Yes.
is on that capital improvement loan that you just referred to with the 8.8 million.
Yes.
Has there been any more discussion with them? I know that we've been working with them to try to discuss about using it outside the 3 capital improvement projects that it was entitled for. Has there been any discussion with them, or can there be some discussion with them, further discussion about how that gets drawn down? I know you have to spend it and then get that money back.
Right.
Is there any discussion with them on potentially being able to do that?
I don't know if Joe's had any discussion, but I know we will have those
We'll
discussions
continue.
just to
Okay.
make sure we cover those bases.
And then the other thing that I had was back to the emergency preparedness. I've been looking a lot into emergency notification softwares that are out there, which we don't currently have. If I can get some consensus from my fellow members, I'd like to direct the town manager to start, and staff to start looking into one of these emergency notification software. There's a lot of them out there. Alert Media is a very big one that people are very popular with. I know Civic Plus, who we already have stuff through, has something similar, but it's, I mentioned in the past about being able to get information to people's cell phones or vice versa. And a lot of these have two-way communication that people can communicate with our staff. We can communicate with our staff as well as our residents and businesses as to updates, ever-changing things that happen very quickly, and it's all satellite-based. So if I can get some of my council members to agree with me to direct them into looking at that and how we could implement it, what it would cost, I think that would be a beneficial thing going into this new season.
Most definitely.
Consent.
Yeah, consent.
Now, what does this do that's different than, because right now we do get alerts, sometimes 4:30 in the morning.
Sometimes there's just a little bit more to it than that. It's two-way communication. Some of these have two-way communication. So we can push out information, but we can't necessarily receive information back except through social media. Some of these have very robust systems that if you're willing to give the information, your cell phone number, you can then, I'm stuck in a tree. There's things that you can get out that we can then communicate on a different level that we have to communicate with first responders to be able to get information quicker. We all know that the communication we had after the storm was very, very difficult because of comms and things like that, as well as willingness to wanting to do it. So I think having a system in place that people can have, and it's not just for emergency stuff. It could be for some of the press releases that we put out. People could then communicate back what they like or don't like about it through a system, and they can do it anonymously, and some of them if they want. So it's just a more robust system than what we currently have.
Mayor, I know in my previous town, we went away from the Code Red to the Evergreen system. The Evergreen system was a state-run system. The state used that system as well.
Mhm.
So it felt like a good connection. And at the time, there was no cost to the town where I was. I don't know if that's changed, but yeah, we'll be happy to look
Yeah,
further.
I think there's another one. I just started looking into. It's called 311. It's a number that people can call 311 to get information or report things and that helps take some of the backlog off of 911's server. So like I said, there's a bunch out there. Those are just the few that I've started digging into. But
Mr. Mayor, if I could, Mr. Town Manager, I'm not interested in relitigating the past, but you did mention the hurricane reentry passes, and I'm hopeful that you're going to be looking at a strategy to utilize those in a way that sort of restores public confidence, and also with a communication strategy as well. As we look at sort of lessons learned, those reentry passes, I think they were certainly a matter of frustration for many of our residents. So kind of be thinking about that, and also how you're going to communicate what that new strategy is, and make sure we message that to our residents, because I think there's some skepticism at this point that we need to rebuild some confidence in those hurricane reentry passes, that they'll be utilized, they'll be public, but people will know what the system is, what the plan is, and how it'll be implemented. I just think that would be a probably a good public safety step, first of all, most importantly, but also a comfort to our residents who've just went through Ian.
Yes. We've also already started as part of our exercise last week, lessons learned, and try to, incorporate some experiences that I've had, some experiences we've had, and obviously the biggest experience is what just happened. So we want to get that while it's fresh, so we can continually to improve and make it a better system for our island.
Jason?
Good morning, afternoon, Town Council. Jason Freeman again, Public Works Director. So Bayside Park is one of the projects we've been trying to pursue for a little while now. We're working with DRMP, who originally designed the park, to work and see what we can reuse, and which should save us some funding money with that. Then just making sure that we have everything ready to go so that we do have the best chance of getting that reimbursement for Bayside Park. So we're working with DRMP now on getting the invitation to bid out, and we should have that out hopefully pretty soon. Get that through the procurement process just to make sure that we go through the right procedures for getting reimbursement. And then as quick as we can get a contract on board and get a notice to proceed, we'll start working on that. So it has been indicated to us that landscape is a little more difficult to get reimbursement for. So we're happy to work with everybody on different landscape opportunities.
Since you're up here,
Sure.
It was under mine, but save you some time so you can get back to work if that's what you have to do. But the Bay Oaks, where are we at with the plans with DRMP and getting those? Or have we gotten the fire district what they need?
So that's what I was just meeting with Jeff, and we're going to work with our internal team here to make sure that we have everything ready to go and then get that through the review process. So we're working with them actually, currently.
Okay.
Just making sure all the plans are ready to go. We're doing a follow-up meeting right after this, and then we'll get a better ETA on that one, but as quick as we can.
Any questions for Jason? Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Anything else, Andy?
No, sir, I want to tell you how much I appreciate the overlap Keith and I've had. It's really been a really positive experience for me to have him here. And I think the learning curve flattened really quick. There's still some to learn, but the things that we were able to process the last couple of weeks have been valuable. And I'm also, working on an agreement with him to bring before legal and to bring before you to extend him a little bit on a kind of a as needed basis, and keep him engaged.
Mr. Town Manager, just an aside, I wanted to ask this while our community development director is here, and because I know Steve's got a busy schedule. I've had a number of inquiries from people that had applied for permits before Hurricane Ian, and these are folks that live in condos, and the condo building is closed, so they can't utilize their permits. They can't make the repairs or renovations that they were going to do prior to the storm, and their condo's fine, but the first floor of their condo is destroyed, and so they're waiting for their building to open. Are we giving them any consideration, or does their permit expire? Do they have to pay again? Steve, could you address that? Because it seems a little unfair to make them have to pay again. Right. And maybe you've already handled this, Steve. I just wanted to kind of get this for public benefit.
Good morning, Steve Poposky, Community Development Director. It's a case-by-case basis. We've been addressing those as they come in. Some people still want the permit and figure halfway through, they'll just finish it out. Some of these permits did not have to do with storm damage, so that changes the answer. And some, if they wanted to cancel the permit because the building's no longer there or something to that effect, and we would refund the permit.
I guess that's my question. So if someone was planning a renovation prior to Ian, and they submitted and received their permits, but hadn't started work yet because it was shortly before the storm hit. So what do you suggest to them? What's the policy for someone in that category?
I think it depends on what their intent is and what the intent of the permit was.
Let's say they were going to renovate their condo.
Right. If they were just going to renovate it, they still have the condo, still want the condo, it still exists. You can go ahead and keep it. If you've changed your mind and under the circumstances, then.
But let's say the permit expired in February and they still can't get in their building. and the condo. And so are you saying that should they come see you and just what should they do?
That's certainly an option. You could come in person if that's easiest for you. You could call us, email. It really depends on what you want to do with it. If you want to finish the project, we're happy to help.
I think
with
these people would
inspections.
like to finish the project once the condo building's open and their actual contractors can get in the building. Right now, they can't get in the building because the building's closed to individual contractors. The condo contractors fixing the building, but individuals can't get their people in there to do the work on their individual unit. But their permits are expiring, and obviously it's pretty costly to go ahead and.
So what you should do is if it's going to expire soon, you should write us a letter or email saying like, I'd like to extend the permit under the circumstances of the storm, et cetera, and we'll extend the permit.
And if the permit's already expired and they just didn't know what to do, what should they do?
It's technically in a different category, but just contact us. There's definitely a way forward or a way backwards, depending if you want to cancel or extend.
Okay, so I think that a lot of the folks would like to extend, I think, but.
Well, and I found one of your comments a little concerning that I think we need to address and dive into this a little bit more now that you've opened that up. Although their permits may not have had anything to do with Hurricane Ian, the fact that they can't finish out those permits is 100% because of Ian. They can't get into their buildings. So I don't think that they should be put into a separate category. I think every permit that was open before Hurricane Ian that wasn't completed, and this is just my opinion, should be allowed to be renewed should they want to renew it at no cost to them, because it's not their fault that they can't get this work done. So that's just my 2 cents on that. I think
you said it a lot better than I did, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, because I think it would alleviate some staff time to have to look at things case by case. And maybe there's still some outstanding circumstances that you would have to do that. But I think, and again, this is my opinion, every permit that was out there that was still open, these people can't get into their condos. They can't get contractors in there because they're not allowed to. I don't think that they should be punished for something that they had nothing to do with.
I agree, Mayor. I fully support that. I was thinking the same thing as Vice Mayor was speaking, that unless you completely changed 180 degree, yeah, absolutely. Status quo, full steam ahead, renew the permit and keep going, no additional fees.
So if a permit is expired for 3 years, are we still going to waive the fee? I just want to be sure we're on the same page. If that's the desire of the council, we can certainly do it that way.
I would say that if your permit expired after the date of the storm, I think you have to pick, I agree, you have to pick a date. You know, if your permit was expired before the storm, then that's not the hurricane's fault. But anything after the storm that may have expired, I think they should be allowed to have the option to renew that permit should they choose to. Now, that doesn't mean you get to come in and amend your permit. Now I want to all of a sudden do a full renovation when I was going to do just the bathroom on the 8th floor of my condo.
I think that's
But
fair.
I think the way that the permit was written, it should be allowed to be extended after the date of the 28th.
I just want to be sure that I'm on the same page. The fee schedule sets a fee for those in the category of the permit already expired, and for whatever reason, the person did not contact us with any interest in extending the permit while it was still open or issued. It's now expired. Is there a certain period of time, like a grace period, that they want us to set in place, like 6 months after it's expired under the circumstances? Or that would be helpful, because this will carry on for many years.
I think that's a fair question. What about by the end of the year? Any permit that's, I think a lot of people were like, I don't want to bother these poor permitting people with my little problem, because they've got bigger fish to fry, because I've already applied for my permit. It's been granted. I paid for it, but it expired in February. But these folks are swamped. I'm not gonna pester them with this stuff. But now they're beginning to think about, gosh, what do I do? But maybe by the end of this year, if they don't come forward by the end of the year, then that sort of grace period would end. Does that seem fair?
Okay.
I think it seems fair, because what I'm hearing is people will be get back in the condos before the end of the year. So you've got that time frame, but you raise a valid point, Steve. You have to have an end date to it.
Right.
Yeah, I think it would all depend on when they can gain access to that building as well, because it's not going to be December 1st. I don't know.
Well, there are some that are unfortunately spilling into next year.
I would guess I would just recommend, I'll continue to say the same thing. If you have an issued permit and it's going to come up and it's coming up to expire, just send us an email saying, I'd like to exercise my rights to extend this under the state of emergency. And we'll do that without charge. That's statewide, which
Oh.
is already set in place. Yeah. So we've been doing that. Now that a different category you talked about, and we're addressing that is, okay, you had a permit, it expired 8 months ago. Yeah, I haven't heard from you since. We've had no information one way or another, and now you'd like to reactivate it. There is a fee associated with that, but like I said, we can, under the circumstances, if you'd like, if it's the will of the council to adjust that, say until the end of the fiscal year or until the end of the calendar year or something to that effect.
I think the end of the calendar year makes sense. By then, I think people should be able to have worked through
Okay.
everything they need to work through and can get back in their buildings.
Yeah.
And if for some reason you have a building or something that were more heavily damaged than others and you can't get back in, obviously come and work with the staff. I think you guys would be more than willing to work with them to understand their situation may be a little different than most.
And I think to your point, Steve, I think even if their building's not open until next year, they could at least come down and talk with you and get that codified, that renewal,
Sure.
et cetera.
Actually, just send an email, just reference the permit number and say, I'd like to extend it, and we'll extend it with no charge.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Anything else, Andy? Or what
No,
about-
sir.
What about Keith?
Well, okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I was going to say that you're in good hands with your new town manager. No, the first thing I'd like to say is definitely that you are in good hands with Andy. We've been working together now for a couple of weeks, and I think y'all have seen that you've made a really good decision, and hopefully Andy feels like he's made a good decision with us. It's not everyone who would come into an environment like this to work and commit to. It's going to be difficult, but it's going to be also it'll be challenging, but it'll be a lot of fun and rewarding because things are about to start popping up out of the ground again. And but I know a lot of candidates are concerned with, can I come in and work in this environment? Can I handle this? And absolutely, Andy is the man for the job. So I think y'all can really take comfort with that. And I'm pleased to make his acquaintance.
Now, see, Andy, aren't you glad you gave him the microphone?
I'd also like it kind of another final comment. There's been a lot of farewells, and I've appreciated it all so much, and the community and the welcoming and the kindness and the friendship that you've exhibited to us and my wife and I, and has been wonderful. But like I said, there's been a lot of farewells, and my wife says that I can't take a hint and leave. So with that today, this afternoon, I will be leaving town for a while, not forever. And then also on another topic I did want to update you on was the solicitation for the town attorney. Those responses are due back May 22nd. And the process in our ordinance is the same as what we just went through with town manager, down to the 5 shortlist, the candidates, and the coffee and muffins. So the town attorney works for council and in a parallel position to town manager. So I felt like it was appropriate. Chris and I and Andy talked about this and felt like it was appropriate to bring in another law firm to vet those candidates, if this meets your approval, to vet those candidates per our ordinance, shortlist down to 5, and just manage that entire process. And we have a firm on standby that's willing to do that, and then make that recommendation to y'all, so they can manage that selection process, certainly with your input and the town manager's input. The timeline with that, I mean, we'll have those in on the 22nd. We have a meeting on June 5th. Andy's going to be gone. I'm not available to come back June 5th. And then you have the second meeting June 19th before you take your summer hiatus. So the results certainly could be evaluated June 5th, and then a selection made on the 19th.
20th.
All right. Thank you. And then, of course, however you'd like to work with that is up to council. That law firm does stand available for any type of interim activity that the town may need and request.
So, is this the typical process for looking for legal services to get an independent firm that is, I guess, not in the running for the services to evaluate the candidates?
They are not in the running. That's correct. I don't know that it's a typical process. I don't know that there is a typical. Our ordinance just says a short list will be provided to council. And how do you get to that short list? Certainly council could do that, could vet the candidates. It's not going to be 100 of them or 87 like we had for town manager. But what it does do is bring in that kind of third party element. And it does not put the town manager into the position of evaluating a lateral staff person for council. So, but it's certainly up to y'all. And I agree. I don't know there's a typical.
And when we're evaluating the different candidates with different types of contracts, will we get a financial impact report on the different firms?
The SOQ did not request a fees. Those are to be negotiated. So financial impact analysis would have to kind of come at that negotiation point. Otherwise, it's strictly on their qualifications.
So personally, I think it's a good idea to have a third party to take a look at all of possibly 2, 3, 4. I don't know how many people have actually applied for this, but I do think that having a third party look at it and also having them be legal counsel to understand what the expectations are of this position. I just want to go on record again and voice my concern, disappointment, disapproval of the performance of our town attorney. Mr. Prasad got up and talked today. I mean, we gave direction over a month ago, and there has still not been that settlement agreement put into place that we agreed upon. We have issues going forward now with the Rude Kramer case. That permit has not been issued. We still have not heard about Kia Stero. I just don't see a sense of urgency. Lack of deliverables, late deliverables, lack of communication. You mentioned that this attorney or this group may be willing to step in, and what would keep them from stepping in to do day to day?
They are available to do that if council would desire. They have offices in Tampa, I think Pompano, and Tallahassee.
Are you looking for consent from the council at this time to either approve or not approve moving forward with both what Councilor Woodson just brought up, as well as the assisting in the procurement of potentially the new or old attorney?
Yeah, I think that direction would be good from council, particularly with the timeline that's given and the summer vacation in July. I think probably some direction at this point would be healthy.
Okay. Councilor King?
I guess I'm not sure what you're wanting from me right now.
Well,
I mean, yes, I'm okay with going forward on this, yes. But I heard two different things, so I guess that's where I guess I'm confused.
Okay, well, I guess I'll start then. I agree that having a third party be involved in the selection process makes sense. However, I'm not in favor. I think just replacing John at this time, although I may agree with some of the things that Councilor King has said, I think that now is not the time to do that. I think we're down the road in the process of potentially finding a new attorney. How that shakes out over the next month will be known. So I'm in favor of the first part. I am not in favor of the second part. Does that clarify a little bit more for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. And now you're wanting my answer, correct?
If you so choose, or I can come back to you.
I would be happy to do that. I concur that it's on our, it behooves us to have somebody looking at these applicants. So I'm okay with that firm coming in and doing that. And I support Counselor Woodson in her feelings that a change should be made immediately, in my opinion.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Well, my position remains the same. I'm supportive of if we can find qualified counsel that's local. I think that's a good move for the town, and I support that. I support the concept of having a firm help us with the transition. But unless the town manager tells us that there's some kind of a problem, a sense of urgency about this, and I'd like to hear that from the town managers. If that's not the case, I would prefer a much more professional and exhaustive search for that new council, assuming we can find somebody who's local who is qualified. So I again support the firm helping us with the transition, but at the same time, I would not be in support again unless the town managers tell us otherwise of a more dramatic approach.
Yeah, and I called John and we had a short conversation Sunday morning about this, so it's not a surprise to John. I think from operation that we did not talk about this. I think from an operation standpoint, there have been some challenges, and that's how I, as town manager, have to look at it because he works directly for you guys, or the firm works directly for y'all. But I think operationally, there have been some challenges for us, and I'm just speaking for myself, maybe not for staff. I'm not sure what they're, and don't ask them, but and I think those challenges have in some cases John has helped a lot, and in other cases I think it's some of those breakdown in communications have impeded the town's progress. So I don't know if you'd like more information along those lines or not, but I do feel like operationally a change needs to be made with regards to the timing on that. Again, just think of the next two meetings and then the July vacation month and how it'll play out with that and whether it make a difference or not.
Vice Mayor Adderholt, did you get the answer you were seeking?
Keith's diplomacy was quite apparent in that answer. So I'm not sure I did. So I'll listen to the rest of my colleagues and then
Okay,
proceed
I'll
accordingly.
come back to you then. Counselor Woodson? I think I know your answer, but giving you a
Yeah, I mean,
chance
my
to-
answer hasn't changed from
Right.
5 minutes ago.
Right.
While I can say that, in the beach school and the parents were happy, I think on most other cases, the town attorney's actions almost feel counterproductive to what we're trying to move forward with. And for that reason, I think we need some fresh perspective. The longer this drags on, I just feel we're leaving ourselves wide open and we're not being responsible as a council.
Counselor Veach?
If we're going to go forward, I'm okay with having professionals evaluate legal services because it's certainly something that I'm not well qualified to do. It's pretty technical. I don't, of course, agree with some sense of urgency to get rid of John. I think that, like in some of these cases, you've seen how good he's done with the school, but in in some of these cases that we're actually involved now in a suit where they can't talk about, there's a huge separation between parties and even what we said and what other parties are saying. And that makes it difficult to move forward. So I wouldn't put that on John. You deal with a lot of different personalities.
All right, Vice Mayor, back to you.
My position remains the same.
I know we've got some diplomatic backgammon going on back here, badminton. Could you, if you wouldn't mind, restate your position so that so that it's clear for the town manager and the town attorney and the council? Because you've had, I think, 4 people very distinctly say.
You're asking me to restate my position?
Yes, would you please?
Yeah, it's I support using the third party, a law firm to help with the transition. but I didn't get clarity from the town managers as to whether they sense that change needs to be made immediately. So therefore, I'm comfortable with a more exhaustive process and allowing John to continue. Should we again find local counsel that's qualified to serve in that role?
You have your direction. Anything else, Keith?
That's all. Thank you.
That's it. Town attorney's items. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. Let me start by reiterating what I have said all along since day one that I have been your town attorney. I work at the pleasure of the majority of the commission, the council. If at any point in time, a majority of the council does not want me to serve as your town attorney, let me know. And we can all move on. In that regard, I'm just going to ask straightforward. There is an RFQ process of that is out there. I don't want to unnecessarily spend time and energy in asking my firm to respond to that RFQ if there's 3 who aren't going to consider it. I can count. I already know that there's 2 who won't. So if there's a 3rd who doesn't want to consider the RFQ, we'll forego that process and move on. With that said, as it relates to the town attorney's items, I have received an email while this discussion was going on that the scheduled mediation in Mr. Prasad's federal case has been rescheduled to the month of June at the request of the mediator. That is going to be June 12th at 2:30 p.m. It is certainly at the discretion of the council if you want to appoint one of your peers to attend that mediation on behalf of the council. It's not unprecedented. We have done that on some instances. I would also, in that regard, remind you, as well as Mr. Prasad, that I am not the attorney of record in that matter. That is an outside law firm that has been appointed by your insurance carrier that is carrying the water on that litigation. So when you all instruct me, you're really instructing outside counsel. They are the ones who control the case on your behalf. They attended the shade meeting that we had, and they are, as I understand it, in my communications with them, working on preparing a proposal consistent with your direction that will be sent to Mr. Prasad's attorney, my educated guess, within the next 24 to 48 hours. Certainly would have been presented during the course of today's mediation, as you all directed. With respect to the other litigation matter that Ms. Woodson in particular mentioned, I received a call during our break from the attorney representing Kia Stereo Shops, and we are waiting for a settlement proposal in writing from them, which one received I will present to you all to get your direction. So things are moving forward, maybe not as quickly as we all would like, but they are moving forward. As far as last but not least, the issues that the town manager may have with workload and work response, I will sit down with the new manager to work through those issues, resolve them, continue to provide what I believe to be is an extremely high level of service at an extremely cost-effective price point for the town, as we have for the last 7 years, and don't anticipate an issue there. Again, if there's any issues with our service, the quality of it, the cost of it, I'm available 24/7. Nothing further.
John, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
I had a couple, but you've answered some of them. So you said that it's June 12th at 2:30?
Yes,
for
sir.
the
That's the email I just received now, whether or not that changed, but I presume that that's a pretty hard and fast date if at the request of the mediator.
I think it's important to have someone from council in that meeting. I'd certainly be willing to do it if my fellow members are okay with it, or if someone else feels that they are more passionate about doing it, then I'm okay with that too, but I'll volunteer should council agree that we should have someone at that mediation.
I just want to applaud your volunteering because I know you've been through one of these before and it was long and not exactly a.
Well, I did look at my schedule first. Does anyone have an objection to that?
Consent to that.
Okay. If you could just keep me abreast, John, as to
Yes,
if
sir.
that changes or not.
I'm sorry, I apologize. One last item. The same is taking place as far as the forwarding of a settlement proposal to Mr. Jameson, because you all recall that was the other, on the same date that we had the shade meeting with regard to Mr. Prasad's litigation. We also had that shade meeting with regard to Mr. Jameson's litigation. Again, we are represented by the League of Cities Outside Counsel. They are in the process of forwarding us that settlement proposal to Mr. Jameson's attorney, and I'll continue to keep you posted.
Okay, but we don't know what day that is yet, that mediation or that.
No, there's no
Oh, just this
pending
proposal,
mediation.
just
That's
a
the
okay,
settlement.
that's right,
Yes.
Okay. Then the other question I had is I copied you on an email from a question concerning the route. Have you had a chance to respond to that email?
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that a matter up, Mayor. I do intend on responding to that today, but I really do appreciate, because it was something that I meant to raise and got sidetracked. I want to remind you all, as well as the general public, I work for you, the town and the town council. Actually, under bar rules, ethical rules, as well as law, I can't give advice to members of the public to the extent that they ask for, or that they, ask you all to see if I will answer a question about a procedural substantive piece of litigation that we're involved in. So I'm very reluctant, and historically I have said I can't provide that information. It would be a breach of my ethical and fiduciary duty to the town to provide you with that, because you're asking for, in some respects, legal advice, or what is the posture. I'm going to answer the email with that caveat, with explaining to that person that there's a limitation, and that to the extent that they've asked procedural questions, that's fine. And we'll try and attempt to answer them as best we can.
Okay.
Can it be clear what we're talking about?
Yeah,
'Cause I'm
it's
not
a
sure.
question raised by a resident about the status of the Eddie Rude litigation. And again, if anyone has any questions regarding the status of that matter, including the permitting process, give me a call. I'm here to protect the city. I'm here to protect the town's interests at the end of the day. And that's my ethical and legal obligation. Take that very seriously. And if there's any questions regarding how I do that, I'm available 24/7.
I think, John, what you're asking is I don't know if we can get into specifics or not, but essentially the question is the way that that John, our attorney, is moving forward with the litigation that has come against us from the Autobahn. Is that plan, or is that path legal, essentially? And I would certainly hope that our attorney would not be doing something illegal.
I can assure you that that's not the case. As far as the issue of issuing a permit right now to move forward with the construction of the dune walker, it is on appeal. And there is a full body of case law out there that says that if someone moves forward with a development project that is the subject of appeal, if they are found ultimately to have done something wrong, they have to remove at their cost the construction that took place. And in this particular instance, the case that we practitioners in my area of the law know, it's a case involving a multi-million-dollar apartment complex that had to be demolished because the developer never had the right to build that to begin with. So what we have advised all the parties is that if a permit is requested, we would require a city drafted, town drafted indemnification agreement, so you all are not at risk for future litigation regarding the issuance of that permit. Because again, that's my responsibility. My ethical duty is to protect the town.
Having brought up that letter, helped me understand, because what I'm hearing is that the town requested that, which you just stated, but that you had told staff that Rude and Kramer had to write that indemnification letter.
No, sir.
Then they did, and then the staff sent it back to you, and then there was a kind of a blow up about that. I just
No,
want
sir.
to understand.
I never informed staff that Mr. Rude should prepare that. If that's the case, there is absolutely a miscommunication. In no shape or form would I ever request that the person who's going to benefit from the indemnification would draft it. I had indicated that to Mr. Kramer previously, and Mr. Rude. Had conversations with their attorney. Opposing counsel has sent them a letter saying that if you proceed and we prevail, you're going to have to remove the dune walkover if you decide to move forward with building it before the appeal is over. If you all wish to direct me and staff to issue a building permit, I will prepare the indemnification agreement. If you want, I'll run it by you all before we send it out and ask Mr. Rude, send it to his attorney, because that's who I need to communicate with, is his attorney. He's represented by counsel. And if they agree, they'll execute it and we'll issue the building permit, if that's your direction.
I mean, personally, I think that's in line with what we have asked to have done. We asked for the permit to be issued. We approve the permit. If we need that letter, I think we need to get the letter.
And I, Council Wilson, I agree with what you just said, but since we've made that decision, things have changed. Circumstances have changed. We know that permit, they can't start construction until after turtle season. So I think our attorney has told us that there is a plethora of litigation out there directing us to not make that decision and to prevent further litigation. I would agree with him that there's no rush. They can't start for 6 months from now anyway. So I don't see the rush. I have not heard from the applicants personally that there's any expediency to getting that permit issued. But if it can prevent us from entering into another litigation, I'm certainly willing to listen to the legal advice. Anyone else?
But doesn't that indemnification letter hold us harmless then, or not?
It would, the way that I would draft it, which is different from what Mr. Rude has prepared, which I don't know if it was prepared by his attorneys or not, or even they are aware of it, is not only to hold us harmless, but to have Mr. Kramer and Mr. Rude make an affirmative statement that they release the town from any future claims and any future litigation regarding the need to remove it if the appeal against them were to be successful, and against the town as well. And that is the key component to any indemnification that I believe the town should require as a condition to issuing the building permit, is that as you mentioned, Mayor, that it's not buying us additional litigation.
Is there any harm in having that draft indemnification letter ready? Should there be a decision to
I-
allow for the?
I
issuance?
already have a draft of it in my inbox. If you all direct me to complete it and to forward it to Mr. Kramer's and Rude's attorney for their review and approval and execution, I will do so.
Well, I would say to do so.
Vice Mayor, would you like to key in on this? I know you're kind of sitting back.
No, I'm just listening. I'm obviously in the minority on this, so I don't want to obstruct the will of the majority.
Counselor Veach, would you like to weigh in on this at all?
I'd like to obstruct the will of the majority in this case, but I understand, but I can count. I don't particularly see any rush. I think that this lawsuit that we're in with Audubon has more merit than the lawsuits we had before. And there's still, depending on how things go, there may be, the town council may want to consider changing our decision if this is going to get too sticky legally, but I can count.
Well, I haven't really given my position on that one way or another, but I don't see any harm. Although I don't see there's an immediate rush to have to get the permit out there because they can't start construction anyway. I don't see the harm in having a letter drafted and given to the applicants. Should they choose to sign it or not, does not necessarily mean that we can vote to move forward with getting the application in their hands. Is that a correct statement, John?
Yes, sir.
And then I'm okay with getting the letter drafted, getting it sent to the applicants to see if they are willing to sign whatever it is you put in that letter, and we can go from there.
Okay. I have my direction. I will do so.
Anything else, John?
No, sir.
Anything else for John? All right. Council member items and report. Counselor Veach?
I don't really have anything this time. Thanks.
Counselor Woodson?
Nothing more.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Everything I have has been covered. Thank you.
Counselor King?
Well, it looks like I'm on the agenda, so.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Right.
But before we get to that, I guess I would just ask, I know a member has asked of the audit committee to meet. I'm supposed to be the liaison to that committee. I'd like us to look at getting that scheduled as soon as we can.
Not just necessarily that one, but maybe all of them. I know Public Safety Committee is looking at trying to get up and running as well. And are you having these, not sorry, I mean, interrupt your time, but are you trying to get these scheduled at the Mound House? Is that where some of these committees are going to start to have their?
I think that's the proper place to do it since it's such a big room, and I would imagine that's a smaller group. I don't know yet, but that would be what I would recommend if
Okay.
you concur.
And I would like to, minimize the strain we're putting on the hospitality here with the good people at Diamond Head.
Go ahead, Counselor. Sorry to me to.
That-
If you don't,
How do you want to handle this?
we'll go. Well, we'll go to the. How about you fill us in a little bit? I'm aware of the details. I brought it up originally, but if you want to just kind of fill in the rest of the council members on what exactly this council member item A, Southwest Florida League of Cities voting member exactly is.
Well, it's, you had brought it forward, requesting, I think, somebody look at running for secretary of this organization, then finding out we don't have a member in there currently. So it's to point me to that vacant position. And then there's a meeting that they're having on Thursday. I've already declared that I would like to be a candidate for secretary. I don't know if there are any others already doing that. I'll declare then. Others, if they choose to, will do it that day as well. And then there'll be a vote in July.
Okay.
Is that cleared up for you? Or?
Yep, I'm certainly in favor of you stepping up to the plate and becoming that voting member on behalf of the Fort Myers Beach.
Now, with an appointment like this, we need a motion?
I believe so.
I will make a motion to appoint Counselor King to the Southwest Florida League of Cities Board of Directors.
Second.
Any discussion? We got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries unanimously.